Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. I am very excited to share with you a gentleman named Brent Scarpo, who is a Hollywood casting director for Shawshank Redemption, among many others. But we're going to talk a little bit about Shawshank today, but also how I met Brent was regarding the loss of his mother. He lost his mother when he was only 34 years old. And I'm going to have him share with you how that affected him. And then he has some wonderful things to share with you about Shawshank to help us through this time in history. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Danielle Burnett from danielleburnett.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. And so with no further ado, I'm going to bring Brent in here so that you can meet him. There he comes. Hello, Brent. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to be talking about Shawshank and for you to help people who may be caring for sick loved ones now. I mean, with COVID and other things people go through, I just thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure. What a joy. What a pleasure. I was up late last night listening to like 3 or 4 of your podcasts last night. So if I look a little tired, that's because I was doing my research and listening to all the wisdom that you share on your show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, you lost your mom when you were only 34. That's pretty young. And your
Yes.
mom fought for 2 years. She fought lung cancer. And I remember you sharing with me how you had to come to terms with it wasn't your job to save your mom, but it was your job to love her. How did you come to that? And what did that exactly look like? What can you share with our audience to help them if they're caring for a loved one going through something really hard like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I got to the end part until after my mother passed away. I think as caregivers, and I'm the oldest of 3 children, so I think for those of you in the audience that identify as being the oldest, we're the movers, the shakers, the leaders. And my mom was a single mom that raised 3 kids by herself. I had literally woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm an intuitive life coach, and I had this feeling that my mother had cancer. And so the next morning I called her and I said, "When's the last time you've had a physical?" And she said, "5 years ago." I said, "Mom, you have to take care of yourself, you know?" And, women especially don't necessarily, they're the nurturers. And so they take care of everybody else. And then if there's time in the end, then they take care of themselves. So we did the doctor's appointment. Unfortunately, we found the lung cancer. So I, moved her in with me. I spent 2.5 years. And, what I was trying to do for her, or in my mind, was to do everything, though I felt I would fall short, that she did for us as children, right?
Mhm.
She was the nurturer. She's the mother. She's the one that sacrificed. She's the one that, always let go. So, for 2.5 years, and being the oldest child, it's like, yep, we're going to do this. Look, I'm a speaker. I do transformational speaking. We're going to do this, positive, reinforcement, all this. And, there is that whole concept in whatever your particular higher power is. I don't care if it's Buddha, Mother Nature, God, or whatever, but, there's my plan, and then you got to meet halfway with God. And so we had 2.5 years, and unfortunately, her lung cancer metastasized to her brain. And then she, on January 13th of 1997, she turned 59. January 20th was my birthday, and then January 26th is when she passed. So, yeah, and if you don't know this, I mean, useless information, but 50% of all people in the world die within 30 days of their birthday.
That is just bizarre.
I know, it's amazing, and people are going to be on the podcast right now going, "Oh my gosh, I know this person, this person." So it was when you're a primary caregiver, and for all you caregivers, I have just the utmost respect for you, because you're trying to balance and put into harmony your life, your family, the person that you love, your work. You're running on adrenaline. And when my mother finally passed away, all that adrenaline just subsided. And I just remember I said to myself when I got back, because we buried her in Pennsylvania where she was raised, and then we were living at the California where she died. And when I got back to California, I said, "Okay, I have to take care of myself. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it," because she was my best friend, and we were tight. And I chose to go to grief therapy twice a week in a group setting, and then once a week in a one-on-one setting. And I come to realize and struggled with the idea that I failed. It was so much pain. And I think as a man, because men grieve differently than women. Men usually do it privately. They're the ones to go back to work right away. And wives and girlfriends and mothers go, well, how can you do that? Well, we have to be busy in order to process our grief. And so, I was, trying to be busy, and just got to the point that in my therapy that I realized that, my job was to save her. I failed at that job. And it probably wasn't for a good year after she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, because but that's the grieving process, right?
Yeah,
Right. We
yeah.
know those 7 steps. Anger.
It's not linear. It's not
Oh,
linear, and it's not, you can't
I
predict
wish.
it. No.
I
Yeah.
wish. So well said. Right. Yeah, you can go from 1 to 7, back to 3, go to 2, then you go to 5, and oy vey, it's just it's like. But it was about a year of going through the grieving process, and I just had that moment. And I remember my grief therapist, she said, well, what was your job as a caregiver? And I said, well, I was supposed to save her. And she's like, really? And then when she said that, for some reason, it just, after a year of working on yourself, which I highly recommend that caregivers do while
Yes.
they're doing, yeah, um, I realized it wasn't. My job was to love her,
Hmm.
right? And I realized I was insanely successful at that. I mean,
Amen.
it was like a burden off my shoulder, because I'm like, oh, that was my job, right? My job was to be there. And look, there were people, I think the biggest, I just spoke to somebody about this yesterday, and she's in the same situation that I'm in. She's caregiving her mom, who's got 3 different kinds of cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and we were saying, our job is to show up as best as we possibly can. And she said to me, she's like, what the most interesting part of this journey is? I said, what's that? The people I thought I could depend on are nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, there's complete strangers that are knocking on the door saying, is there anything we can do? We're your neighbor 3 doors down. We heard your mom is sick. And so,
Wow.
this thing, when we know we're making this transition, death and dying, this is not something we talk about on a regular basis, though I think we should. And I know we're going to talk about it. But I think it's something that, well, look, we all have to address it at one point in time. And I think if you're more planned for it, to have this dialogue and with family members and loved ones and such, you're a little bit more prepared.
Right. I learned within the last year that there is such a thing as a death doula.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hadn't known that. I was listening to a podcast. A gentleman was interviewing someone who has a book coming out, or just did come out. I think it's coming out this month, or maybe it did last month. And it was about, oh, what was it called? Something about estimated time of departure.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was talking about preparing for death, and talking about it because he did that with his parents. And that's how I learned that there's such a thing as a death doula. And it is, you're
Wow.
right. It's hard to talk about. I remember when my mom had cancer, and she had talked about things before that because my dad died suddenly when I was a child. And, didn't have anything prepared. Everything had to go through probate. It was a horrendous mess. And then my brother died suddenly also, and he didn't
Oh,
have anything
sorry.
prepared. And that all had to go through probate. So my mom was like, nothing's going through probate.
Right. Her mantra, her newest mantra, it's on the wall. Nothing will go through probate. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So she wanted to be much more prepared, and we talked about things, but not to the extent as like this gentleman was talking about, like, how do you see that looks and stuff? And I'm like, wow, that's just really strange questions to ask yourself. And it's like, those are hard to think about because we don't like to think about our mortality, but the line is true. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a book, and I cannot remember the authors to save my life. It was years ago. Oh, you may know it. But it was a couple, and I might have read it after my mom passed away. But the book was written, and I can't remember this, but all I remember is that they woke up and they decided to write this book. And the idea is that they're going to write this book, and that 1 year from the day they started writing the book, they would be dead. And how would their life be different? and it's just fabulous.
Wow.
Unfortunately, yeah, you know, so, think of it in that. I mean, it was a great. Unfortunately, I can't remember the book. I'm sure if you Google it, the theme and such, but it was like, nope. Today, 1 year from today, we'll be dead. And so throughout the entire book, at 1 month, 6 month, anxiety, what's going on, what didn't I get done, what do I need to do, and all the things you have to do in the process, and things you don't think about, and the appreciation that you didn't have for living, and it was pretty amazing. So you're forcing
Wow.
yourself into those decisions.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's a great segue into your mom was only 59 when she
Yeah,
passed.
yeah.
And you shared a little bit with me about that as because she died in your arms, I think you told me. And
Yeah,
how did that affect you when you were only 34, she was only 59. And I mean, my dad was only 55 when he died. My mom was only 66 when she died. And it's like, so how did that affect you? And you
yeah,
told me a little bit.
absolutely. It's so interesting. The grass is always greener, right? Because then I'm thinking about, here we are in the middle of COVID. We just reached over 700,000 people in the United States that passed away. They have those phenomenal white flags at the Washington National Mall that represents each one of them. And, I say 59, and then I know 7, 8, and 9 year olds that lost their parents at 30s and 40s from COVID. So in the end, I think it's all relative. Um,
Well,
it's
that's what it is. It's relative to us. We're the ones
That's
going through the
exactly it.
grieving.
That's exactly right. Well said. Yes, is exactly my point. It's like, you know, I remember, I'll never forget this, to your point. You just have to, uh, I don't know, I prepared for it. You brought up a really interesting point. I had a really good friend that lost a friend in the Twin Towers on 9/11. And, there are really only two kinds of death, right? There's the one that we know about. They have cancer, they've got a disease, right? And we can prepare for it, go to the hospital. And there's the sudden, the car accident, or they have the heart attack and whatever. And who knows why one is picked over the other. Um, if I had to choose, I think I would much rather have the way that it is that my mother died, because I was mentally and physically and psychologically and spiritually able just to kind of grasp my heart and my head around what this process was going to be. Right. And so, I think because we had 2.5 years, because we're spiritually based, because my mother and I talked about death and dying all the time. I mean, all the time. That's why the red balloon, the Today Show episode, why, I won that contest. So I think because we talked about it, and there wasn't a lot of mystery about it, or, I mean, there's mystery about it, but we weren't really afraid of it. And we would talk about it, and we'd be at breakfast. And I think just having the conversation versus all of a sudden getting the call and this particular person had a heart attack, or they have cancer, or that you're in the middle of the process, but you don't do anything about it. I had
Mhm.
a really good friend of mine, and uh, she unfortunately had someone that she loved that committed suicide. And there's various people that are still in denial of the fact that it happened, and just don't want to deal with it. And so I think, to your point, just being able to talk about it while you're alive. I know we're going to talk about Shawshank, and one of my favorite saying is, get busy living or get busy dying. You have to do both. You have to
Mhm.
do both, right? Clearly, we want to live as much as we possibly can, but the dying process is part of living, and you need to prepare for that and understand it. And I think, I think the people who do prepare for it, that being dying, live better lives.
Mhm. Oh, a living intentional life. Like my book, Because You Matter, the subtitle is How to Take Ownership of Your Life So You Can Really Live. And I'm a person of faith. I believe in God and Jesus, but not
Right,
everybody does. And one of the things I have in that book is for people to own their faith.
right.
To own
Oh,
their faith. I mean, of course, because what I believe, what you believe, we want everyone to believe what we believe, and that's the nature of belief.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but for someone to own intentionally, like you said with this, you wrap your head around it, and what am I going to commit my ownership of? What am I going to believe? What am I going to do with this? And being intentional with it, and like you're talking about dealing with dying, is being intentional. What do I believe? What do I think? What am I going to do with my life?
yeah. Versus all of a sudden it happens, and then you have to go into that vault of those questions and try to figure out for yourself something that you've never even addressed before. And that can be, that to me is what brings on trauma. It's the lack of that preparation that brings on trauma. Look, there are many things that happen in our lives that are traumatic, but I often say to my life coaching client, in fact, I say it all the time. I always say, it's not about the problem. It's never about the problem. It's about your relationship to it,
Mhm.
right? It's about your relationship to it. I always say, when they talk about, well, this and that and this and that, I'm like, well, create your own reality, right? To your point, take ownership, create
Yeah.
your own reality. If you don't like the reality you're in, then just switch it up, right? Make different choices, move, get out of the relationship, have it, whatever.
Mhm.
But so many people, you know, again, don't take ownership, because when you take ownership, then you take responsibility. And you
Mhm.
take responsibility, then you have to be the bearer of the consequences of the choices that you made.
Mhm. In my book, I really go to great lengths to explain the difference between responsibility and ownership, because
Yep.
they're two different things. And when you take ownership, you're right, then you will take responsibility in the proper light. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
look, when you buy a house, you're now the owner.
yeah,
The responsibility is paying the bills.
yeah.
you
Will
know?
you take care of it? That's up to
Yeah,
you. You
that's
don't have to
exactly
take
right.
care of
You
it.
don't have
Will you be
to.
responsible
That's
for it or
exactly
not?
right. That's exactly right. It's a great analogy for every aspect of life. Yes.
Right, right. And you're right. The trauma is not the problem. Trauma is not the incident. Trauma is the wound that happens inside of a person. Like with a child, they don't have the control that an adult does. They can't just make their situation different kind of
No,
thing. But
they
as
look
an
to
adult,
us.
you can, and I call that my superpower. We have the ability to choose how to respond. And we need
Right.
to own that, because that's one thing we always have. Viktor Frankl called it man's last freedom.
Yeah.
It's the ability to choose how to respond. It's like, and if we build resilience in ourselves, then we will be able to handle more things that might be traumatic to someone else, because trauma is personal. It's how your relationship with it, how you said that.
Well, and to your point, I just did this webinar a couple of days ago. I picked up on a word that you shared. Yeah. So what do you control? Yourself. That's it. And whether you choose to respond or whether you choose to react.
Mhm,
And I would say when we react, that's when we feed trauma. When we
mhm.
respond, that's when we have the ability to be able to understand what's going on in our present day and our life, so that we can get through this better than if we were to react to it.
Mhm. Yeah, we have to build that into ourselves. I love this quote by a gentleman I've heard before. He said, "The only person we can control is ourselves, and that's on a good day."
That's on a very good day. So very
Because
true.
sometimes we lack controlling ourselves also, and
Yeah.
we find ourselves in that. So if we work on it, we get better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we could spend another whole show on just control. It's like, can we really control ourselves? Like, what is that really all about?
On a
Right.
good day.
Yeah, on a good day. Yeah. I love the fact that I'm so out of control, it's not even funny.
Yeah, so you mentioned the one of your you have 10 life coaching lessons from Shawshank.
Yes.
How can those help people now? I mean, that's with Shawshank. How does that affect people now in this time with COVID and all the things that have happened in our world? How can those 10 things help people?
Sure. So I was one of the casting directors of the movie The Shawshank Redemption. Everybody's probably freaking out right now on the podcast. It was one of the best summers of my life. We shot that in '93, when came out in '94. We were nominated for 7 Oscars. It was one of the first times that I was behind the camera instead of in front of. I was a young actor for a very long time. That's why I moved from Pennsylvania to California. And then in the last, my 2 biggest passions in life really are the entertainment industry and education. So in this last 2 years, I really started looking at those entities of mine, and I've been merging them together. And Shawshank Redemption is on TV like 100 times a day. I mean, it is one of the top 10 films that the American Film Institute says you have to see. So I just thought, wow, there's so many amazing lessons, and I have all these behind the scenes you know uh, uh, stories and experiences. So, recently I sat down, I watched the whole thing, and I went through it and found these lessons. So, especially now, given that everything is in pure chaos, look, to your point, and I love, we're having an aha moment, because this isn't even one of the lessons, but it just came to me. The character of Andy Dufresne, played by
Mhm.
Tim Robbins. I mean, he is unjustly brought to prison without his
Yeah,
permission. Well, we were unjustly brought to COVID without our
yeah.
permission. right? All of a sudden we woke up and there was this, like, the world just changed. It changed for Andy Dufresne, right? Everything was great. He was a successful banker. We all had lives that were phenomenal, but this is why we have peaks and this is why we have valleys. And all of a sudden we've been in this prison, just like Andy Dufresne, for the last 2.5 years. Some of us literally in the house, can't leave, can't be with loved ones, so on and so forth. And I often say that, again, take the reality that you have and try to make the best you can of it, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there's a lot of similarities in regards to the last 2 years. Get busy living, get busy dying. I had clients that, were calling me just freaking out about, as we all were, like, what is this? This is a once in a lifetime kind of situation. And I said, okay, well, here's the deal, right? You've got two choices, and basically it was get busy living or get busy dying. And I used the concept of time. People who had lost their jobs. I said, okay, you've been like yelling at me and frustrated and saying, well, I don't have time to do this and I'd like to get this. I said, you do now. You do now. I got 196 projects done in my house. 109, and I consciously put them together because I had all this time. I'm like, no, I'm not sitting here lamenting and screaming and yelling and who's this and who's that and you're and pointing the finger. I said, nope. This for most of us, and a lot of us didn't really embrace it. We've been wishing this forever. My one friend called me. He said it had been about 6 months in COVID, and we were all quarantined. And he's been married for a little over 17 years. And he knows I'm a life coach. And he calls. He said, I have a question to ask you. I said, what's that? He said, I've been married for 17 years. I said, yeah. I said, you have a lovely wife. He goes, I just met her for the first time. I said, what do you mean? He said,
Yeah.
I've been in this house with her for 6 months. I don't even recognize who it is I'm married to. And most of us did, right? When you're forced in that situation where you've got to be around somebody 24/7, I can't begin to tell you the number of clients I had and friends and people that were like, oh my gosh, that's who my wife is. That's who my girlfriend is. That's who my husband is. Yeah, that's who they are. Right. That's the 24/7. So, there's just a lot of great lessons. Probably my favorite, and I know you have the poster. There's a poster for Shawshank, the original one. And my favorite saying is the caption. I think it's the reason why it's become such a popular movie. But the mantra I would say for Shawshank is fear can hold you prisoner. Hope can set you free. Right. We've been in so much fear the last 5 to 10 years. It's ridiculous. Right. And so many of us have lost. Yes, there it is. And, I have that poster on my wall and for 10 years. And do you think I ever read the top of that just to no? Well, it wasn't until I got the second poster on the 10th anniversary and when I put it next to it, I went, oh my gosh, this is why this film is so popular. Yeah, think about your fears, to all your audience members. One of the exercises I have my clients do is write down the 10 of your fears, right? And then circle the top 3. What are the top 3? We call circle the frog. And
Circle the frog.
yeah, so you haven't done circle the frog? Oh yeah, circle
No.
the frog, circle the frog. So circle the frog it's a great kind of an organizational tool, but like for those of you who have the to-do list and all that. So each day you make your to-do list, right? So it can be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things. Then what you do is you go through that list, find the one that you absolutely stress out about the most that you don't want to do. Maybe it's I've got to do an Excel spreadsheet. For me, I lose my mind because I don't know Excel. I don't understand it. I don't get. I was like, right. I just my brain doesn't work. I'm like Excel and the columns, and I'm like it freaks me out. But I got to do it in order to do billing. That's the frog for me. The frog is what you don't want to pick up. So you circle that and you do that first in the morning. And what happens is that when you do that first, you let go of all the anxiety and all the energy of what you don't want to do. And the things that you have to get done that you want to do get done so much better. Because if you wait to the very end for circling the frog, then all the negativity to go through the good things, is spewed from the frog. And then most of the time you don't even get to the frog. And then what you do is you take the frog and you put it on the next day's list and the next day. No, circle the frog every day. And that's the first thing you do. And then there's this freedom, like, oh, I got Excel spreadsheet done. Yay. Like there's a victory to it. So yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, circle the frog, face your fears. You cannot bring hope into your life until you're able to acknowledge the fears, right? We face our fears, we create the necessary action steps to overcome them. Look, life is unfair. I get it. I really
Mhm.
do get it. But again, it's not about the problem, it's about your relationship to it. Be relentless and tenacious, right? Be relentless and tenacious. I mean, I've been knee deep in problems, and to me, I just have to like pick myself up by the bootstraps and go, okay, it's hard. I get it. But it took Andy 20 years to get out of prison, and he used a little rock hammer.
Yeah.
He wrote, I mean, but he had time. We all have
Mhm.
time, right? He wrote one letter a week, to the
Right.
state to try to get those library books, and it happened. So again, we've got to break down our own negative walls so we can, our own prison, so that we can live the freedom that we want. We have to be tenacious and we have to be relentless.
Right. For those people who would say, well, it took so long and it took so long. And what they need to feed that is the hope that you just finished talking
That's right.
about.
Well,
The hope and the faith to keep
right,
going, because he did it 20 years. Why did he keep going?
right.
Because he was getting busy living and because he was feeding the hope in his heart.
Right. Look, I mean, isn't it interesting? And it's all relative, right? So, for example, um, people moan about getting in line for the grocery store, right? Everyone's impatient for the grocery store, and da da da. And then that person pulls out a checkbook and writes a check. Yeah, I'm like, really, can't you just use a debit card? Like I do the same, right? But we'll stand in line for 2 hours to go to our favorite concert. What are you in line for? Oh, I'm getting tickets for Rolling Stone's final tour. And you're as patient as you can be. You have no problems
Attitude.
with standing line. Yeah, it's the hope. It's the hope that I'm going to see the Rolling Stones final tour. But we can't. You just have to transition that into the same thing when it comes to all the different lines. But it's the same amount. It's the same concept. I have to wait in line. But it's just
Uh-huh.
it's a
It's
mental thing.
mindset. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Another one, your greatest strength is inside of you. So no matter where you're at or what people say to you, stay true to your own core values. That's the thing that Andy Dufresne did, right? He lost his freedom. He was sexually abused in prison, physically, mentally. But the core values that he had going into there is what kept him alive. I've worked with a lot of Holocaust survivors, and the vast majority of them, the gentleman that wrote Night, he said, they could take everything away from me, but the memories of my life, the memories of the people I love, the memories of my past, they cannot take those away from me. And that is the hope that we talk
Mm-hmm.
about, right? In the middle of being in the Holocaust and that fear, there are things that people can't. There's a really great scene. I just forgot about this in Shawshank where, he gets thrown into solitary confinement in the hole, they called about it. And he
Mm-hmm.
had to do X amount of days. And they said, oh my God, what was it like? He said, oh, it was fine. He said, why? He said, oh, I just played baseball. He said, oh, they let you take that phonograph downstairs because we were listening to baseball games on an old phonograph. He said, no, it's up here.
Mm-hmm.
I just played the games in my mind to get me through the time, right?
Right.
So absolutely.
Owning
Second,
how he was going to respond. He was owning
absolutely
how he was going to
right. How
respond.
am I going to respond? What's my reality? They
Yeah.
say my reality is in the hole where it's all dark and I only get fed once a day and light comes in for an hour, right? No, my reality is I'm playing every baseball game from the World Series, right? Absolutely. Another one is your second greatest is your tools and your skills and your accomplishments. We all have assets. We all have abilities, right? When we poo-poo ourselves, it's like, no, know what you can do. What sets you apart from everyone else? I'm a firm believer that everybody has a skill that's different from everybody else, that you do something better than anybody in the entire world. Andy knew this. He had financial knowledge. He had
Mm-hmm.
this financial knowledge. He's like, look, I can help out the guards. They don't have to pay taxes. I can help out, Clancy Brown's character, and who just got 50,000 from
Yeah, I remember that scene on the
oh, I was
rooftop. He
there.
almost
I
got
was
thrown
there.
off the rooftop.
I was like, I wanted to see that so bad. I climbed on the top of the roof. I got a chair. It was so hot that day. Oh my God, it was so hot. And I love Clancy Brown. He's just an amazing actor. And it was an intense scene. I mean, we ended up doing it for like 12 hours, but oh yeah. Oh no, yeah. There's an old adage in Hollywood: we don't sweat, we glisten. Uh, but we're not, we work, you know, I mean, I think the shortest day I had was 12 hours. The longest day I had was 21.
Wow.
And then you start up the next day, 6-day work weeks. You know, we only had Sundays off. So yeah, absolutely. What are your assets? What is it that you can bring to the table? I love this one. And Andy got this. Good friends and relationships support you both during the good times and the bad times, right?
Yeah.
You can't do this alone, right?
Well, like you said, when you were going through it and your friends going through it, it reveals who your friends are. It's the same
oh,
thing with COVID. It has
yeah,
been revealing to people who they are. You know, you
well,
find out who they really are. This
right,
last 2 years, you're finding same thing with money. Money, it doesn't change people. It reveals who they are.
right,
You
absolutely.
know, and
Yeah,
we have gone through that. It's like, that's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. It's you know, the character of people are tested. Our character as a human beings is tested every day, right? And then when we have relationships with other people, it's tested yet again, right? And I'm saying to you, you know, look. There's this great concept called the chameleon effect, right? I used to do life coaching in prisons, and I loved it. It's one of the best jobs I have in my entire life. My youngest inmate was 18, my oldest was 88, and he'd been in for 62 years. Choices. And I remember my first day, and I had like, oh, I don't know, like 76 people inside my room, and it was a little daunting.
76 people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember it's at Pritchard's Detention Center in Southern California, and my headhunter called and said, "Hey, we've got this perfect job for you. They need somebody because the person quit." I was like, "Yeah, sure. What is it?" And it's teaching life skills to men in prison. Well, I had done Shawshank, and so I had a lot of research and such, and so I was like, "Yeah, sure." But you know, when you go through the front door and then you're frisked and then you go through security, then you go through another steel door, then you walk down the hall, then you go through another steel door, then you get to the guard that's going to help you, then you go through your classroom, and it was this huge auditorium, and I'll never forget because it was
I already
massive.
feel the anxiety with you
Oh,
just saying.
I was like, okay, I can do this, right? And so the lectern was up here, and I said, well, how many students do I have? He said, well, this week, because it changes between 70 and 80. And I was like, oh, I said, okay. And I said, and it was a 3-hour class. I said, where will you be? He said, oh, in my office down the hall. I said,
You're
in your
going to be
office
in a
down the
room
hall?
with 80 inmates
Right. I said,
alone.
what do I do if something happens? He said, see that panic button on the wall over there? I said, yeah. He goes, push that. They would have slit my throat before I even got to the button. There's no way. No, I was by myself. I was completely by myself.
Wow.
And so they came in, sat down, and I thought, okay, I gotta get their trust somehow. I having done Shawshank, I realized that I had to create some kind of relationship with them, right? To our
Mhm.
points. So I looked at everybody and I said, hey, welcome. My name is Brent Scarpo. I just got a quick question before we start. I know I'm a brand new teacher. How many of you want to be a millionaire? What do you mean talking about a millionaire? Well, how would we be a millionaire? We're in prison. I said, no, I'm serious. Raise your hand. How many people would love to be a millionaire? I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire right now. It'll take us 2 minutes. So maybe a fourth of them raised their hand, right? I said, okay, for those of you who raised your hand, congratulations. For those of you who didn't, ask yourself right now, what is it that about myself that I don't think I'm worthy of $1 million? And I can't even raise my hand. Let's move on. And I said, close your eyes. And I did a meditation with them, right? I meditate
Mhm.
every morning. And I said, and I basically took them back about 2 weeks before they were incarcerated. I said, think about your environment, who you're hanging out with, who's your homies, how are you making money? Is it legal? Is it not illegal? How many children do you have? Are you, what you're, all that. And then think about the day where you got caught and then being arrested and the handcuffs and so on and so forth. And I said, okay, now open your eyes. And I said, look around. And I said, now you know why you're here. You are a product of your environment. I said, here's the simple answer. If you want to be a millionaire, hang out with millionaires. You want to be a drug addict, hang out with drug addicts. If you want to be a cheerleader, hang out with cheerleaders. If you want to be a salesman, hang out with salesmen. If you do this long enough, you will become them, just like the chameleon. The chameleon walks through the planet and adapts to its environment. Whatever environment you find yourself, you will become that. That's why you're here. And that was the hook. I had the respect. Well, 2 weeks turned into 9 months. And so
Wow.
Yeah, it was just incredible, and it's just for everybody that's out there, look at your life and go, well, I just don't like well, who are the people in your life? Who do you hang out with? What's your job, right? And you are those people. You are your environment. So if you want to change, then find those people. And then, it got a little technical. Then they raised their hand. Well, how do we get a hold of millionaires? I said, when you get out of here, email. I've emailed tons of millionaires. Hey, my name is Brent, Scarpo, blah, blah, blah. I'm a huge fan. I'm whatever. They'll answer you back. Maybe not every one of them, but in this world of technology, you can get a hold of anybody, right? And share. Well, number 7, share the value of who you are with others, right? If you want to create a better you, share the most valuable parts of who you are with them, right? I just had a client yesterday. We were talking about this. We were talking about the concept of special, right?
Of what?
The idea of special,
Special.
SPECI. Yeah, what is special? And he was going through a couple things because his whole life he was told he was special, right? And that's kind of messed him up a little bit. And so I said, well, let me give you my definition of special. Special is not who you are. Special is what you do with what you have. Special is what you do with who you are. That's what it is. Special is not who you are, it's what you do with who you are. I've always wanted to say, it's never happened, but I want to be on a talk show. I want to, like someone like this interview, and I want to do something really amazing and say, oh, do you consider yourself a hero? Because most people say what? If they did something heroic, you said, oh, do you consider yourself your hero? Most people will respond how?
No.
No. You know how I'm going to respond? Heck yeah, I'm a hero. Of course I'm a hero. But let me give you my definition of a hero. A hero is not what they do, is not who they are. It's what they do, right? Special is about the actions. That's why the value of who you are, when that's shared with other people, it's not about you. It's the concept of you taking what is the biggest asset and allowing yourself to be able to share that, those random acts of kindness. The
Yeah,
other
you're a
part,
hero to someone when you do stuff like that. Then you're the
right?
hero for
Absolutely,
them. A
absolutely,
hero doesn't mean you have to save someone from a burning building.
not
That
at
can be
all.
heroic. But when you do something for someone and they're just like, and they're just so excited and you just bless them so much and you change their life, you have played the role of a hero.
Absolutely, I agree. And again, typically it's not who you are. It's not because I'm Brent. It's because Brent did A, B, C, D,
Mhm.
right? I took action steps. So number 8, opportunities can be seen everywhere. You just have to look and you have to listen. Um, if you can live in the present moment, I know it's difficult, and there's, that's what COVID did, right? I mean, I had friends of mine. Another friend called and he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going crazy and da da da, and my husband and my kids and la 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 la." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Is this the same woman who 6 months ago spent $5,000 on a retreat for 3 days to get to know yourself?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, guess what? You're doing it for free now, and it's more than 3 days." And she
Mhm.
sat back. She said, "Oh my God, you're absolutely right." I said, "Yeah, this is one of the biggest social experiments that the planet has ever had,
It's
right?"
like, what are you going to do with it? One of the things that we witnessed in our subdivision during the lockdown was we had an epidemic of tree houses. Everyone was building a tree house.
Yeah,
And it was a great thing because there was something for the kids to do. But it's like when people applied themselves to what can I do with this time? What can I do with my energy? What
right.
is in my hand?
Right, and they were probably baking sourdough bread in the treehouse too, because that was happening as well. Yeah, look for opportunities. To your point, one of the greatest scenes. Oh my gosh, and this ties into number 9, practicing random acts of kindness. So they do the roof, they tar it, and he
Mhm.
almost gets thrown off. And he says, "No, no, I can help you. You don't have to pay taxes on your wife's inheritance." And so he found that opportunity, but the
Yeah.
opportunity wasn't for him, because then you go to that scene, and it was we had to wait till the sun went down, and he said, "I can do it. All I ask is 2 beers apiece for my colleagues." Can you imagine having the gumption? You're in prison,
Yeah.
right? And to ask, this guy who's, not the nicest guy in the world, that I'll do this for you, but there's a price to pay, right? he found that opportunity, practiced a random act of kindness, and there's that great scene where they're drinking beer. And the
Yeah.
best part of it is the one guy comes over to Andy because he's sitting opposite of them as the
Hmm.
sun sets. He goes, "Hey, would you like a beer?" And then he goes, "No, I stopped drinking." It wasn't about him,
Right.
right? So much, I think, of what's happened, in the last 5 to 10 years for multiple reasons that is that we've made it about ourselves, right? We're not taking into consideration other people. It's a me world. And as much as I believe in that, yeah, you've got to take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others.
Right, exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup and you can't give produce from an empty garden. You have
Yeah.
to take care of that for the reason of loving others. You got to love yourself so you can love others.
Yeah. And then I've seen also, and especially with some of my clients, that we've seen this in the last 10 years, that whole concept of privilege. Well, I'm not doing it. You're going to do it for me. Why? Because I deserve it. Well, no, you create your own reality, right? I'm going to create my reality over here. You create your reality over there. And if we meet and we can help each other, that's all well and good. And that's something that we've had to address. Last one is in life, you have to take risks, right? You
Mhm.
just have to take risks. Playing it safe just doesn't work. It never has. I think that's a lot of what has happened in COVID as well. I had a good friend of mine in the beginning of COVID. Poor thing. She just, I'll never forget the call. She called me just in tears. And she said, "You know the 3 jobs I have?" I said, "Yeah." And she, single mom, 2 kids. She was the cocktail waitress at a bar at night. She was a waitress during the day at a restaurant. And then she also did their accounting. Got fired for all 3 jobs in 72 hours.
Wow,
Restaurant
all
business,
three.
all gone, gone. And I said, "Okay." I said, "So here's what's happened." Right. And I try to explain this, to my clients as well, is that, in the universe, what happens is here, I'm going to use and I can take a sip too, because I'm going to,
Yeah.
right.
Yes, you,
Okay. So here's the glass, right? Here's that real abusive relationship. Here's that job that you can't stand. Here's the house or the neighborhood you don't want to be in. Right. But rather than do something about it, you just complain about it, or I'll just do it, whatever. So what happens is then the universe says, "Well, you know what? You're kind of complaining about it. So this is my plan. Because you've been complaining about it pretty much every day for the last 15 years. So we're gonna have this thing called COVID, and we're gonna create the space necessary so that the new opportunity will come in. Since you weren't willing to take the risk, I'm going to force you into the risk, because science says, physics says, you cannot put something somewhere if it's already occupied.
Mhm.
And so many people refuse to get out of that relationship, out of that house, out of that job, and so they'll complain about it and complain about it, and then they're working with the universe, God, Buddha, whomever, and he said, "Well, okay, my wish is your command." And then they go, "What happened?" My sister, she complained about her job for years, years. Finally, they got sick of it and they fired her. She called me freaking out. I said, "Be afraid of what you prayed for. Now do something about it." Right? She opened her own successful business. She did everything that she wished she could, but she feared. And so she
Mhm.
faced those fears, and
That
now
goes
she's
back to circling the frog.
I'm telling you, you got to take those risks. You got to take those risks. You got to take those risks.
Yeah. Yeah, have courage. That's why you surround yourself with the people you want to be like, because they will
Right.
encourage you to take those risks and to do what you dream. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And they give you the tools to do it, because for the most part, and this is why I tell people, whatever you want to become, just hang out with those people. I have a lot of seniors in high school and college students that I life coach, and I adore them. Millennials they're my passion. And when they're in college, I make them, if I'm working with them, they have to do as many internships as possible, and then my seniors in high school, they have to shadow at least once a week for as many weeks as they possibly can, a business that they think they may want to have as a career, as part of my exercises. Just so you're in the reality of what it is. It's one thing to watch LA Law and say, "Oh, I want to be a lawyer," or NCIS, right? And it's another whole different thing. I had a college student, she was pre-law, and I said, "Okay, let's get an internship." She was a sophomore. Oh my gosh, she's like, "I hate the law." oh my God, this is horrible. Like, this is so boring. I was like,
Isn't it good that she found out that way instead of,
absolutely,
wow,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of great things.
So let's just stop here and just pause for the audience to say, hey, if you're thinking about doing something because you watched it on TV or inspired by something, find a way to intern or to view it or visualize it or get a taste of it before you throw yourself all in, and verify.
Yeah, look, you can, as simple as this, even if you can't intern, I would say call. Just go through the white pages, call an attorney, hey, my name is, I'm a senior in high school. Can I set up an appointment to speak to you about 20 minutes of what it means to be a career as a district attorney? They will love you. There's nothing human beings want to do more than talk about themselves. Right? I'm telling you, I've never had a client say, oh, they said, no, we can't. They're absolutely, oh yeah, what time? Well, would you like to come to the office? Well, how about if I take you out to lunch? All those scenarios have happened to my clients.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to you got to go above and beyond. And again, those are the 10 lessons that I learned from Shawshank. I think the
Can
biggest
you
one.
list them just in a row now that we've talked
Yeah,
about them, just to
absolutely.
review for
Ready?
our people?
So number one, get busy living or get busy dying, right? In the
Mhm.
dying part, yeah, you have to talk about it, but we talk about it so we can get busy living. Two, fear can hold you prisoner, hope can set you free. Face those fears so the hope will show up. Be relentless and tenacious, right? The minute you feel depressed, the minute you feel like, oh, I can't do it, that's when you got to grab yourself by the bootstraps. Four, your greatest strength is inside you. What are your assets? Five, your second greatest is your tools, your skills, your accomplishments, what you bring to this planet. Six, good friends and relationships support you both during the good times and the bad times. So I always say to my clients, just have that one friend, that one person that will love you unconditionally. You don't have to have 5,000 Facebook friends. And oh, by the way, they're not your friends. I'm just going to straight
True.
up. I'm going to tell you. Seven, share the value of who you are with others, right? That ties into practice random acts of kindness, right? Next, opportunities can be seen everywhere. You just have to look and listen. When we're doing this all the time, you cannot see opportunities, right? When you're
And for
on,
those on the podcast, he's holding his
oh,
phone up.
yes, I'm holding my phone up. I'm holding my phone up. We're so disconnected, right? And it's sad. I mean, I saw this one YouTube video one time, and it was a girl walking across a little park or so, and she was, doing the thing with her video and her camera, and she had the earbuds, fell right into the pond, walked right into the pond. I was like, oh my God, so disconnected. And when you're disconnected like that, then you cannot see the opportunities that are right there for you. The universe is trying to slap you upside the head saying, it's here, it's here. And lastly, in life, you must take risks. You must take risks. You cannot play it safe. I do an exercise with all my clients. Once a week, at the end of the week, they have to do something in fear. They have to do something in fear. And what does that mean? That means figure out what it is that you're most fearful about that week, do it, and then at the end of the week, let me know what happened.
That's good. That's good. Well, this has been so awesome, Brent. Thank you so much.
You're
We have
welcome.
shared a wealth of information with people. How can people connect with you online? How can
Sure.
people reach out to you?
Well, we love Victorious Souls. We love you. And I'm so grateful for being here. So, my website is brentscarpo.com. So BRENTSCARPO.com. And, I'm an intuitive life coach. As I shared with you, I was on the Today Show in 2010. I have these innate abilities. So I like to offer all your listeners a complimentary strategic intuitive reading. As long as I'm alive, it doesn't matter because I know these stay on forever. If you just text Victorious Souls, right? Or Souls or Victorious, whatever you want, just text it to 760-835-3327. Again, Victorious Souls will be great because then I know exactly where it is that you heard me. I will go ahead and we'll do a 45-minute to 60-minute complimentary. It'll blow your mind. I'm about 86% correct every time reading, and you'll have tools at the end of that 45 minutes to actually take with you and make a difference in your life. So again, just text Victorious Souls to 760-835-3327.
Okay. Well, thank you again for being with us today, Brent.
Yes, absolutely. You're a joy. You're a pleasure. I so adore you. We've had so many conversations up to this moment in time. So I'm just grateful. I'll leave you one last bit of wisdom for your audience. I was asked this a couple days ago. What wisdom can I share? And it just kind of hit me. And I'm at my grandmother's, and she unfortunately she passed away from COVID on Valentine's Day, and we're just addressing the issues that we have
So
to address.
sorry.
Yeah. So a lot of different things. So this comes from Edna Smith. She's an adopted grandmother. I actually rented her home in Mansfield, Ohio, when I was shooting Shawshank Redemption. So we'll pull it all together. So she looked at me one day and she said, Brent, what's the best thing a father can do for his children? Right? So for all you men out there, listen. And I said, oh, that's a great question. I said, well, take care of the children, provide for them, bring them food, get them an education. She said, oh, those are really good answers. And she said, you know what? I think the best thing a man can do for their children. I said, what's that? Show them how to love their mother.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how brilliant is that? How we as children actually define how we love based on the people that are around us. And so when she said that, yeah, that is one of the best things that you can do as men. The best thing we do for our children is to show them how to love their mother. So with that, thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wasn't that just wonderful hearing all that from Brent and all those 10 things that you can learn from Shawshank that you can apply to your life so that you can improve your life now in this COVID, post-COVID. I'm going to call it post-COVID. I know it's still out there, but maybe I can just speak it out there. Post-COVID, it has to end sooner or later, and we are going into a new normal. And so for you to grab a hold of these 10 things, apply them to your life, and thank you for being with us today. And until next time, I'm that lady on the internet who loves you, and I love you.